Well, I've stopped going to church. There it is. It's out there on social media for all to hear and see. Ian Freestone has stopped going to church. Now you might say, well, you're a pastor. How can you stop going to church? And you're a Christian. How can a Christian stop going to church? And someone else might say, well, hang on. I saw you in church last Sunday. What do you mean you've stopped going to church? Well, you didn't see me going to church. You didn't even see me in church last Sunday. What you saw last Sunday was me with the church. You see, we are the church. We cannot go to church. It just grammatically and every other way, it just doesn't make sense. Now you might think I'm splitting too fine a point on this, but I'm dead serious. I have stopped going to church. If church is the meeting that we have once a week or once a fortnight or whenever, be it on Wednesday night or Sunday morning or Sunday night, then we have lost the meaning of what the church really is. You see, in the Bible, the church is not something you go to. In fact, if you get an online Bible like Bible Gateway or a Bible on your computer and type in the words to church, those two words, side by side with quotation marks around them, you will not find a single hit. Not a single hit. There is no reference in the Bible to going to church. It doesn't exist. And yet it's part of the way we speak about church. If you type to church into Google, of course you'll find tens of thousands, if not millions of hits, because that's how we think about church. We think about church as something that you go to. But in New Testament language, going to church is a physical and spiritual impossibility. Now you might say, well, hang on again. You've gone too far with this one. Churches meet, surely. Churches have meetings. Yes, churches have meetings. In fact, I'm going to show you right now that churches meet. Churches gather together. In Acts chapter 2, of course, they gathered quite a bit. What does it say? In 2:46 of Acts, every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts, and they broke bread in their homes. Every day they met together. When Peter was in a spot and he was in prison, what did the church do? The church gathered. So Peter was kept in prison, Acts chapter 12 verse 5, but the church was earnestly praying to God for him. And they met at the house, I think it was of Mary in Jerusalem, and they prayed for Peter. And churches gather for all sorts of reasons. When Paul and Silas came back from their missionary journey, it says in Acts 14 verse 27, they gathered the church together. They gathered the church that was scattered throughout the week or throughout the last few days was gathered together. This group of people who followed Jesus. That's what church is. Here's the very simple New Testament definition of church. Church is a group of people who follow Jesus. And sometimes that group of people gather together. Paul gathered the church together and reported all that God had done through them and how he had opened the door of faith to the Gentiles. And they stayed there a long time with the disciples. In 1 Corinthians 5, Paul says, when you are assembled together in the name of the Lord Jesus, ... In 1 Corinthians 14, verse 26, when you come together, everyone has a hymn, a revelation, a word of instruction. So of course, there are times when the church gathers together. But if we fundamentally miss this point, that the church is not the meeting, then our gatherings will simply just be that, gatherings. They won't have the power of what church is. Church is a group of people who follow Jesus, who are in relationship with one another throughout the week. Church is a family, and families meet together at times, don't they, and share a meal together. So it is with the church. Churches meet, share a meal, and celebrate what God has done.